Understanding Sexual Templates for Gay Men. Hey guys, Michael Pizzulo here, psychotherapist in West Hollywood, working mostly with gay men. So I want to talk to you about this concept of sexual templates and why I think it's so important that all of us, particularly gay men, get to understand these, the psychological function of them, and really using them to help you in terms of your self-esteem, your relationships, your sex life obviously, and so on and so forth. So the general concept goes as such is that each one of us has a unique template of characteristics, dynamics, and different attributes that trigger arousal and eroticism for us. And these are unique to each person. So each one of us has a unique template. You can think of them almost like taste buds, sort of a thing. But I think that it's so important that all of us get to know our template, and particularly gay men, because I feel like gay men have been taught, sort of inherently through our culture and families and so on and so forth, to repress our sexuality. So the time in adolescence where a lot of folks begin exploring their sexuality and exploring their arousal templates and sexual templates and so on and so forth, we kind of miss out on that, or we're doing it in the shadows or doing it sort of covertly. So I think it's such an important exercise as adults that we begin this part of our self-exploration. So sexual templates are really simple. You can just think of it as like your sexual taste buds. So it's going to be, physical attributes obviously are probably the biggest one in terms of, what body types, height, weight, facial features that you're attracted to. Then there's going to be, different types of scenarios, whether it's something more risky or something more playful or something more safe that can be turn-ons. Emotional needs are also really important. People forget, I think particularly gay men forget, that our brain is our biggest sex organ. So we bring a lot of emotional needs to sex as well, whether it's like the need to feel desired, the need to feel powerful, or the need to feel taken care of, or, even if you go into something a little bit more BDSM-like or kinky, it could be the need to be dominated or something like that. So our emotional needs also play a really strong role in our sexual templates as well. Then there can be things like novelty chasing or wanting something that's more, familiar, different aspects like that. So what you start with is just getting to know your template and really thinking about, what turns me on consistently. What we find when we start to identify templates is that what's interesting about them is, although they vary dramatically from person to person, so they're fluid in that nature, we're not all attracted to the same thing, obviously, they do tend to be relatively fixed throughout the lifespan. So the template that you have, that not only is it unique, but it's also likely going to be relatively more permanent. So most of us find that things that are exciting to us or sexual or turn-ons tend to be the same way throughout our lifespan. Of course, sometimes we stumble across something new that is exciting or whatnot, and that can be great, and we add it to the template. But for the most part, guys find that what turned them on when they were a teenager tends to turn them on when they're an adult. So there's going to be understanding that nature of it. The other thing too, just in terms of the origin, is that it is really random and illogical. Oftentimes we're turned on by things that we don't know why we like them. We may, again, be turned on by a person that we don't even like, or a scenario that we don't necessarily like objectively. So we know that, our intellect and our judgment is a different part of us than sexuality. And there's obviously some overlap, but that this sexual template really does kind of have this like mysteriousness to it and this abstractness. And again, that's not to say that it's a good or a bad thing, but it's more about just understanding the nature of what it is, so that you can explore this part of you and know that this is separate from, your wisdom and your logic. And I think all men understand that sometimes they're turned on in moments when they don't want to be, just physiologically, or, maybe they're in a committed relationship and they don't want to be turned on by someone at work, but they are, stuff like that. So we want to normalize that there's like an illogical, mysterious element to sexuality, so that we're not shaming or, just getting frustrated with ourselves. And then in terms of the therapy, I think, when it comes to sexual templates, it's less about changing them. And in fact, I would say it's very little about changing them and more about getting to know them. Again, I think for a lot of us, we grow up in this culture that can be very sex negative or shaming and repressive. So it teaches us to distance ourselves from our sexual templates and our sexual needs, which can make it very difficult to then go out into the world and explore sexuality, right? But then particularly for gay men, we've gotten so much shaming about sex and sexuality that it's even more difficult for us to just know ourselves. And I think people forget how powerful it is just to know who you are, that this is such an important part of being a healthy human being. And really bringing in the self-acceptance as well. Because again, I think that most people will find that their sexual templates do remain relatively fixed. So it's gonna be more about, accepting, embracing, celebrating who you are, rather than trying to force yourself to be something that you're not. I'm not gonna, force myself to kale. I don't really like kale very much. I don't know if anyone does. And enjoying the foods that I do like naturally. Same thing with sexual scenarios where if I'm into, kind of vanilla, simple, comfortable sex, then that's perfectly fine. I don't need to force myself to be the person who wants to go to, a dark room at a bathhouse or whatever and do something super wild. And if that's what you're into, that's perfectly fine as well. It really is about finding what's organic to you, and exploring a sexual template is a great way to begin doing that. And you can also pull in different cultural influences and what we're exposed to in porn. I mean, there's so many different things that you can really explore in this type of work. So I would encourage you to do it. So hope this was useful. Curious if any of you are familiar with this concept of sexual templates or arousal templates. Would love to hear your thoughts if you've done any of this type of exploratory work. And hope this was useful. If you want more content from me, please feel free to like this video or subscribe. And if you want to talk to me directly, I'll put a link in the description and you can book a free call with me. So hope this was useful, and thanks guys.